PED measures the degree of responsiveness of change in quantity demand of a good to the change in the price of the same good, ceteris paribus. And when we say that a good is demand price elastic, what it really means is that when I change the price of this good, the quantity demanded will change more than proportionately. That is what it means by demand being price elastic. When I say that demand is price inelastic, it means that when I change the price of the good, the quantity demanded will change less than proportionately. So that is what is the difference between price elastic demand versus price inelastic demand. So what causes the value of a good to be price elastic, which means that PED value is more than 1? And what causes the demand for good to be price inelastic? The PED is actually going to be less than 1. Of course, remember, whether is it less than 1 or more than 1, the sign is always by default going to be negative. Now, the sign for PED is always negative because of the law of demand, which states that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now, let's look at the determinants that affect PED. We start first with availability and closeness of substitutes. Alright, let's think about Starbucks coffee. Do you think that demand for Starbucks coffee is going to be price elastic, or is it going to be price inelastic? Now, if you were to ask me and I were to justify using this determinant, availability of co-substitute, I will say that, well, Starbucks coffee, in a general sense, demand is going to be very price elastic. Why? Because there are many substitutes available for Starbucks coffee. Like, for example, you could drink coffee bean, or you could just go to your local cafe or go to your local coffee shop to get a cup of coffee at a lower price. So there are many substitutes available for Starbucks coffee. So I would say that demand for Starbucks coffee will be generally price elastic. And if you look at another good where demand is relatively price inelastic because there are not many substitutes available, it would be in the case of drinking tap water. The context we will use in Singapore. In Singapore, there is only one company that provides water, and that is actually a public company called PUB. Right, so we don't pretty much have a choice. We have to buy our water from PUB, and therefore demand for drinkable tap water is going to be very, very price inelastic because there are not that many available substitutes around for tap water. Next, when we talk about proportion of income will be another determinant that we use to look at the PED value of a good. A McDonald's meal, okay, will probably be demand price inelastic because it takes up a relatively small proportion of an individual's income. Whereas a luxury bag like Louis Vuitton bag that costs thousands of dollars will probably be demand price elastic because it takes up a large proportion of a person's income. So let me explain this. When you buy a $2,000 handbag and the $2,000 handbag sees an increase in price of 10%, 10% of $2,000 is actually quite significant. It's actually $200. So you're going to feel quite strongly about this price change. Whereas if you were buying a McDonald's meal, if the McDonald's meal went up from $5 to $5.50, an increase in 50 cents is probably not going to drive you crazy. So you're going to go ahead and buy that meal anyway. So this is the reason why demand for a McDonald's meal will probably be more price inelastic as compared to a Louis Vuitton bag. And next, let's talk about degree of necessity. In Asian countries like ours, Singapore, we will find that demand for rice is going to be very price inelastic because it is considered to be a necessity. Whereas when we consider things like cars, in an area where we don't have that much space, we find that cars are actually more of a luxury good than anything else. So demand for cars will be relatively price elastic. So a small change in price will lead to a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded for cars. Whereas if we're looking at the good rice, when the price of rice changes, you'll find that people will still pretty much consume the same amount of rice because they're not going to be so sensitive about changes in the price of rice. They're still going to buy the same amount of rice despite there being a 20 or 30% increase in the price of rice. The next one that I'm going to talk about is this thing called duration of price change. When you go to your supermarket, you usually buy this carton of milk at this price, and you notice that the price went up marginally by 20 cents. I'm just going to buy it anyway because I can't be bothered to go and change the brand that I'm currently drinking. But given more time and you notice that after some time, well, the price increase actually maintains. You'll be thinking, should I try another brand since this brand that I'm drinking has become a little bit more expensive? So you may consider actually changing the brand. So with more time, you'll find that the good becomes substitutable as you feel compelled and you have the time to go and investigate what would be a good substitute to the brand of milk that you're drinking. And lastly, let's talk about breadth of definition. Remember, I was telling you about how rice is demand price inelastic because it is a necessity. Now, think about if I change it to brand ABC rice. Brand ABC rice, which is a particular brand of rice. If we look at a particular brand of rice, demand actually becomes very price elastic. Why? Because there are many substitutes for brand ABC rice. You could have many different variants of rice, and you find that demand for rice will become actually very price elastic if you're looking at a particular brand, because it becomes very substitutable. So how widely or how narrowly you define the good will have an implication to the PED value of the good. So how can firms make use of PED concepts to determine what they should do to the pricing of their goods? Now imagine you run a supermarket and you have software, you have Excel sheets to track your inventory, so you have some data to work with. So the moment you have some data to work with, you realize that you should be able to do this. If you have a range of goods that are very demand price elastic, what can you do? When you cut the price of these goods, quantity demanded will increase more than proportionately, so your total revenue will rise. So what would be examples of such goods? Perhaps high-class wines at the supermarket, their demand tends to be more price elastic. You could give discounts on these various more high-class wines, and you'll find that quantity demanded will increase more than proportionately. Whereas perhaps if you find that certain kind of goods like toilet paper, the demand is highly price inelastic, what can you do? You can raise the price, because when you raise the price of these goods, quantity demanded will actually fall less than proportionally, causing your total revenue to rise. So these are just some of these strategies that producers can adopt to help them to increase their revenues.